the constant ping from various different people who are not very much into technology in your corporate world. It could be product, it could be business owners, it could be the leaders, etc., etc. They're knocking on your door. It could be L1, L2, L3, SRE engineers. It amplifies a more structured type of a solution to all those people, where your work, you're actually reducing the toil by building the right appropriate dashboards as well. So there is a component of dashboard which also solves the toil part of it, which we can talk later in.
Hi, welcome to a new episode of Observability Talk. Today, I am excited to welcome Ravindra, our special guest on the Observability Talk. Ravindra is an experienced technology leader with over 20 years of experience leading key operations of cloud engineering and services, automation, observability, toil reduction, and site reliability engineering. He currently heads SRE practice at Kotak for their mobile platforms. And before that, he was at Nike and Infosys. I met him last year when he created a SRE event in Nike and got together industry practitioners as well as Nike software engineers to talk about toil reduction, chaos engineering, SRE, and observability. Although I was not on a speaker list, he agreed to let me talk about business journey observability and how we at ViewNet stitch the customer journeys together. Hey Ravindra, thank you so much for joining us today.
Bharat, thanks for having me. This is a great opportunity, and I'm extremely excited to spend some time with you.
Great. Ravindra, to start with, you have been leading a lot of technology teams, right? And then moved on to become a program manager. And then you put your focus onto the site reliability engineering. And now you are heading a function, the SRE function at a large bank. Can you talk about your journey and how did you end up leading SRE? And what really excites you about this whole SRE practice?
Sure. I mean, that's a fantastic question. I think this is where probably I want to put a little bit of a phase of finding your own niche probably helps you to succeed in the area what you want. I think it's a little bit applicable for that. And when I explain a little bit of a story to that, that might make sense. Like anybody, I started my career being a software engineer. I was at that point in time, ETL was most data warehousing was a extreme level of requirement. What happened was when I really bought into a project, I literally started struggling when it came to scratch programming. Anything to be built from the ground up was not my niche at all. But incidentally, it so happened that one of the couple of weeks I was doing on call, the analytical skills sort of kicked in. And I figured out finding out the faults in the program or finding out the faults in the execution level and the performance was something which sort of interested me. And I must say, as where I stand today in SRE world, there is no looking back. So being a software engineer, the life really moved on, ultimately being much into the operation side of the world. I've done L1 sort of a thing, but quickly I realized that I had to move to L2 and L3, whatever the terminology is, however multiple companies recognize. So my ladder was onto that. I worked into the East Coast of the US for logistic type of a company, which showcased how difficult the world of operations could be, both from a business standpoint and a technical standpoint. And eventually the journey ended up in Nike, as you know, in the West Coast of US. So I've literally spent around close to 14 years with Nike, including India when I came back in 2022. But the interesting fact, when we were really sort of into the operation layer, in 2016 is when Nike sort of decided that, look, let's have a dedicated SRE team. And that journey, somewhere in our course, we can also talk about is it becomes a perfect mix of what should be from an operation side and what should be a core developer into the mix of SRE. So fortunately, I was selected to sort of lead and build a team onto that SRE at that point in time. And that's how the journey of really SRE started off, because Nike decided and dedicated their manpower, effort, and whatnot to follow the Google practice of putting the mindset, what we call do the operations with a software engineering mindset. So that's where everything really started off. And here we are, 2025, in the world of Kotak, and sort of trying to apply the same principles once more in my life.
And how easy it was for you to actually transition into that mindset of SRE, where you need to apply some of those software engineering principles to reliability.
Oh, extremely difficult. I'll tell you this. I mean, it's not easy at all because your brain is wired in dealing with operation problems are completely in an operational way because you want to escape from the pain because you're getting constant calls saying that did we solve the problem? Did we solve the no, not the problem. The mindset is did we solve the issue? Did we solve the issue? Right? So that's not. And when I say it's difficult, not just only for me, it's a surrounding environment as well who have already seen you as an operational type of a guy or a team or members who are sort of known to sort of to receive the on call, restart the something, go and update the database, or do whatever it takes to get back to the optimal operating type of thing and really operate. Putting that software engineering mindset to solve a problem, like okay, I saw these issues 3 times. Now let me convert it to a problem. Let me convert this into a Jira. Let me bring in a software a sprint planning to it so that I never want to see this three repeating ultimately. Really requires a conscious awareness. Let's put it that way. It's not about your skills. It's more of your psychological aspect of let me take a breath. Let me solve this issue, but let me not get away from it. Let me solve this permanently. And that's why the concept of DevOps, where putting this pressure on engineers directly really helps out because engineers being the smart people, they never want to see this issue again because they're tired. They don't want to wake up in the night and etc. Right? So my answer and a conclusion to you is it takes effort. It's not very straightforward to adopt the concept of SRE and do it as a software engineering mindset when you have dealt for a very long period, especially in bigger companies and whatnot, where you have a dedicated one who have been constantly restarting services for you, or there is a team which is constantly monitoring alerts for you. Yes, I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, that is very interesting. I think third or fourth episode we talked to Safir. I think you met him in one of the Has Geek sessions, right?
Yes, yes.
And he made a very interesting point, and he was like really very sort of emphatic about saying this that people have to start looking at reliability as a feature, right?
Yes.
Rather than afterthought or trying to figure out, okay, I have my application built. Now, how do I go and put reliability around it? Do you have any thoughts on that? What do you think about such sentence like reliability should be a feature of your application?
I have two answers for that. One is I want to supplement his statement with one more statement of mine, which you have personally heard me telling multiple times. And this, whenever I introduce myself and I say my title, my next immediate line is, I'm from SRE, but I'm not from production support. And I mean by that, I've personally experienced that a typical mindset in various different organizations is a old wine in a new bottle type of a concept. So production support has been labeled somehow as SRE. So that's not true. Point number one. Point number two is aligning to the statement what has been said by you is reliability is one other practice exactly similar to your software development lifecycle. So when you start your software development lifecycle with the product, which is ultimately collecting the requirements from your business partners and whatnot,
right,
there originates the process and the journey of SRE there itself. SRE is not at the end when you're decided to go live. And that's one of the most common mistakes which we all do because we're in a hurry of collecting the requirement and finishing the functional requirements. Reliability has never been onto the parallel, but I'm very happy to announce the mindset and the culture has been changing. I mean, specifically where I am standing now with Kotak, the way we have been hired and we have been forced and merged into the stream of product development, SRE is running parallel to them. So my important 2 points are SRE is not a software engineering. Second is reliability starts along in parallel or horizontal, wherever, but at the same starting line when your product really ultimates and not at the end when you're deciding to go operational. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, very much. So I think we all are in sync that reliability is one of the very critical component people should start looking at very, very early on, maybe day zero or maybe sometime day -1. You talked about that when a problem happens, people definitely want that problem to be solved very quickly. And given the kind of complex infrastructure we deal with, right, as an SRE, there are cases where things might be going down and then people want it very, very quickly up. and you would have seen various type of problems in scenarios like that, right? As a site reliability engineering expert, what keeps you awake at night? What is it that you are most worried about? Is what I want.
Yeah, makes sense. I wanted to sort of put up a punchline out there, which is ideally speaking, as an SRE team, if I am operating as a true SRE in an organization, nothing should keep me awake. I mean by that, because my job is at the latest, my job is ideally to prevent any of these type of issue happening, or my job is to really make sure as a post-mortem of the event that this should never happen again type of a mindset, right? So I personally, this is, I think many people can challenge me, but my opinion is if there is a night when there's a critical issue happening, I should not be there in my, because either there is an L1, L2 type of production support, which is to extinguish the fire at that point in time, or the rotational model of DevOps engineers who actually need to be there so that they know and understand what needs to be done immediately to extinguish it. So, in anyway, I know this is a debatable topic out there, but my intention is assuming that critical issues are happening in the night, I shouldn't be awake in the night. But I get your question. What keeps me worried is something which I would want to answer onto it. That being said, at the end of the day, Bharat, as they say, who's going to guard the guard? SRE is not a miracle which is there somewhere in the sky. SRE as a technical tools and capabilities, what we eventually build, is also sitting in a similar type of a platform in which a functional requirement is running. It could be a cloud platform, it could be a tool, it's a machine at the end of the day. My problem is if our observability tools is on toss at the time when it is really required, and that happens more often than we really can imagine about. It happens. And many times we go to a postmortem type of a session, or what we call the AR, after action review, or I think typically it's called root cause analysis and stuff like that. There are times when we have to accept the fact saying that, yeah, my alert didn't really kick off at the time when it was supposed to kick off. So that's something which really bothers me all the time. If I'm actually putting a stack of observability onto a bunch of functional verticals, like because I sit as an horizontal for all the connecting the dots, giving them the dashboards and whatnot, but how will I make sure that my application is ready? Am I doing the rightful reviews and checks and balances, scalability, all these fancy terms, what we talk about, scalability, then the costing and whatnot. Are we doing that onto our own tool at any point in time is one of the questions. So that is one of the challenges which I'm being very much facing, even in Kotak, no doubt about it. Then the second one, which I feel as an important challenge is, in the monolithic, everything was very tightly coupled. So it was easy to understand what's happening where. In the microservices, I'm sure you understand, it's all hell loose type of a world out there. Everybody's, as a true engineers, they need to have the independence of their technology, their tech stack, their cloud platform. But we are sitting in the complex world of microservices. For a complete application to work, they all come together very nicely. The world of APIs, you name it. For me as an observability, I'm a guy who is supposed to stitch that entirely and give a final report to the world so that either the business, even the C-suite type of leaders, or the layman type of an engineer, including the L1 guy, they need to have an holistic view which can tell a common story. But that's the problem. The culture of the microservices teams are different. The tech stacks are different. The costing and whatnot are different. And then comes a legacy part of it where the modern day solutions are not so much flexible to connect to the world of cloud, to tell me a story of observability. So that's one of the challenge which really bothers me all the time. Like, how do we connect end to end? So if I have to put it in one word, end to end observability is something which really sort of, I'll say, irritates me all the time, because finding the niche success out there, Bharat, I'll tell you, it's very close to impossible in my opinion. Although I'm sure many people will challenge me on that as well. And the last point, Bharat, onto this, with respect to what keeps me awake is, again, an alignment with respect to what we see as a rightful metrics. I know is, when we talk about observability, for us, the wins are, I bring down the MTTD, I bring down the MTTR, I establish the complete CUJs, what we call the consumer user journeys or the critical user journeys. Now, bringing the harmony between the teams, and I want to explain this with an example. You have a front-end team where it is a login functionality, and you have probably extreme backend as a upstream system or downstream system, however you want to put that. If they assume that they're running in batches, for them, their services is not S1 all the time. Whereas anything on the front end, it's always an S1 if it goes down, right? But your end to end, ideally, if you're looking to CUJ, it transfers itself into an S1 type of case. So if I have to define an SLI and SLO to for one entire consumer journey, bringing the relationship and harmony between all the teams is always there. Basically, SREs ultimately become pretty niche negotiators as well in the world of tech, is my opinion. So we just don't play the technical role; we play the negotiating type of a role to bring the teams and the organizations together. I'll stop, sir. Though these are the challenges of the modern day of observability.
Right. No, I think I can kind of completely agree on all the points. I will just want to elaborate a little bit on the second point, which you talked about the end-to-end part.
Yeah.
What I have realized over time, see, we at ViewNet generally claim that we do end-to-end unified observability or business journey observability. And as you rightly pointed out, end-to-end is very, it needs to be defined correctly.
Yes.
Right? What exactly end-to-end means. Because while we say that we do end-to-end and we do some sort of provide a view end-to-end, but it is not at the granular level of transaction, for example, right? Purely because there are a lot of shared component which is available within the journey.
Right. Right.
It could be a network load balancer, it could be a firewall, it could be a switch, it could be a server which is basically being used by X number of applications, right? So you while you will get the visibility, you can still get it end to end, but you will not be as granular as maybe you are in an application server, right?
Yes.
But it still helps in sort of get a complete picture of your infrastructure if somebody is able to achieve that end to end, whatever is in their environment.
Couldn't agree more on that, Bharat. You're absolutely right. I think that makes me to sort of amend my own line in the point too. When I say about impossibility to this day, and I don't mean to say it's a technical challenge, Bharat. I'll give you another example. Okay, say you have 10 microservices where that as a journey travels, you need to understand companies are organized in various different ways. Say probably the front end layer ultimately is under a different leadership. The backend, which is a core product, is under a different leadership. Now, when either your product or you look into any other product, DataNet, AppDynamics, Splunk, what really happens is at the end of the day, it's licensing. Don't get me wrong. There is that certain part of it would sign up and certain part of it would not sign. So that's it. That's where the end comes in because you don't have the visibility later. You're not stitched at the end. So my point is not Corey, with respect to that, we have a technical incapability at this point. But although I do amplify that the technical incapability also exists because if your systems are into the mainframe type of a world, underneath at the back end of it, like the fancy tools like the whole mammoths of Finacles and stuff like that, right? Penetrating that and integrating with the fancy cloud type of solutions today, that is one sort of a technical challenge. But more so is the business processes and the team structuring and all of these things, and also how much anybody is invested to really make it happen also there. So I think it's more of a human problem than the technical problem in today's day of the world.
No, I completely agree. And we have seen this challenge at multiple customers of ours, right? Where either the application is not emitting enough metrics or telemetry, or it was using a, let's say, C++ application, right? Which is cannot be instrumented, right? And needs to be monitored only through logs, right?
Yes.
So those sort of challenges are definitely there. I completely agree on those parts. So Ravindra, you have had a great amount of learning by managing these digital channels, right, of customer-facing applications and services. Like you were basically looking at SRE for their internet-facing applications, right, websites and so on. If somebody is to pick up SRE to ensure that best customer experience, what should be their top considerations and look for if they are now setting up as an SRE practice, or they want to bring in SRE practice for making sure that their application, services, infrastructure is providing the best customer experience?
Yeah, great one, Bharat. This is very crucial for any of the applications. I mean, that's where although the question is very specific to consumer facing, I would answer very specific to that part. But in general, before I start with my answer, I would want to make this comment that um, at the end of the day, as an observability, when at my position, when we try to see as an horizontal type of view, our mindset is always about not differentiating anything at all which sits with a stack of technology within a company, because there is nothing called not consumer facing at the end of the day, because any small service which is written at the extreme back will have a contribution to the consumer facing. Yeah, that's my general notation, but I understand your question, so let's go to that particular point. So consumer facing, I'm sure we are very familiar with this word called golden signals. So that would be the beginning of, not beginning, that would be the North Star, what we sort of should aim for consumer services. Because if, in the fast paced type of a world, the attention span, what we talk about is, there was a time when it was minutes, now it is seconds. If the websites like Amazon.com would doesn't really serve my need at that moment, I lose the interest in the overall product at all. Like I go to, I'm searching for my cat's say litter item, and by the time Amazon responds to me with a quick answers, if it's not there, I move on with like searching something else for my daughter. So that's the attention span what we have. So that's why golden signals becomes extremely important. What do we mean by golden signals for the benefit of our audience? Some of the core metrics which is applicable from a stand of how well my application is performing is the golden metrics, namely the availability, latency, throughput, errors. There are quite a few, but these are the top three: are the availability, latency, and throughput. That's something is a must. Now, in consumer, these golden signals by itself can be sliced into multiple options, which is, am I worried to the real-time serving of the front-end type of application, not worrying about the cached information, which is about my transaction information. I can cache it and whatnot. So as long as I can stitch a story in a dashboard format, which shows that my website and my features were 90.99 or whatever is the target, it's available, I am making my consumer happy. So that's the inclination to your question. So golden signals are the most important thing which you focus on. Next is synthetic monitoring. We have talked in the past as well, which means there might be a time, say 1 o'clock in the night, when we as an engineers, relax a little bit about the performance of the day, assuming that there's not much traffic. But guess what? One of the best customers of yours might be awake on that night, or he might be in a different time zone, and he might ping our website at 1 o'clock in the night too. And a bad experience still matters at that point in time. So synthetic monitoring is where I artificially induce these type of things so that I get the right alerting to see if it's up or down is synthetic awareness. So this is very much important in a consumer facing type of observability and application, is we need to be up round the clock, excluding the maintenance period. But that maintenance period has to be managed in a different way, which is a different topic. As long as you are considering that the Windows is 24/7 and it's working, synthetic monitoring becomes a most important thing, especially for the features which you really care. For example, checkout. Checkout is where the money is really turned and consumer is turned into revenue and whatnot. So these are the things. So that's synthetic monitoring. Distributed tracing, this yes or no, I mean, this is debatable. At least to the level where you know that when the consumer comes in and he places an order and we need to give that information back, if I can achieve distributed tracing at least to that level, it's a great win. And finally is dashboards. So dashboard, I want to take a couple of extra seconds out there, and that is, Bharat, you agree, I hope you'll agree with me. There was a time when dashboards was more used from let's have a look, let's have a eyes on the glass to see if there is any spikes. Let's see if there is too much of allergen. But I hope again you agree with me. Today, our monitoring and observability type of dashboards have actually transformed into business dashboards as well.
Exactly.
I mean, I have seen C-suite type of leaders ultimately looking up into various different tools like Splunk and New Relic and all, which tell the story of how well are we doing business, how is the traffic doing. So it is, I couldn't emphasize more on the dashboards, especially when it comes to consumer facing. As long as you have the right tool for your SRE practices, you are actually using the same tool for not just monitoring, you're actually using for your business metrics as well. You don't need to go buy one more extra tool out there in the market to tell me your analytics of your business usage and stuff. as long as you put your MLTs, which is metrics, logs, and traces in an appropriate fashion, C probably CEO gets his report from an observability type of tool in nowadays. So that's why I amplify in a consumer from dashboards is an extent. People always challenge me like, I mean, why am I so worried? I need alerts. People focus on alerts. That alerts is more from an engineering standpoint. They need to go and fix it before it becomes an art. So no downplaying at all. It's very important. But dashboard adds its own different game ultimately. So that's and I'll sort of finish off with a couple of more points if it's okay with you. Can I take?
Please.
Then is scalability and adaptability. Scalability, as you can rightly understand, it's you said consumer facing. Traffic can suddenly increase, suddenly drop. If I'm not really arranging my scalability, not just from the functional requirement, even from an observability standpoint. Scalability is, I mean, my tool should be in a way to collect the metrics, to collect the logs. Suddenly there's a spike as well, right? And this is not fake. This is really which we have observed. At a time of the peak, when our functional solutions were working, our observability has crashed.
Right.
Because it failed to contain the bridge of the information which is coming into it. And ultimately, when we go and to slice and dice, how did we perform or what really happened? Why did this fail? Guess what? We don't have metrics. This is where I would talk about like what keeps me awake in the night. The guard who guards the guard is actually failing the system. So that's one part. Just scalability is very, very crucial and very important. And finally, I'll end this answer with like sort of challenges which I can think of, which is again, since you said consumer type of facing, it depends on company to company. If you're a complete cloud type of platform, your observability implementation would have been easy, so you're good. But if you're from a very big, old mammoth of a company which has traditional legacy systems out there, which can't really be plugged in with your modern day type of an observability tool, your end-to-end type of story, which we talked about, is still a challenge. So it depends on how well you, I mean, this is the full story, right? So that there is a portion of legacy system, which is backend, mainframe, etc., but you still have a bigger chunk of cloud already implemented. So see what you can do in the hemisphere of that, which can stitch a story for you where consumers are not really hurt, that the sentiments are not hurt. So those are my sort of predictions and suggestions and advice ultimately on what we need to focus on when it comes to consumer facing. I'll stop there.
No, I think if anybody is trying to set up SRE, I would suggest that person to just listen to these 5 minutes of your insights, right? Because this is very to the point, right? I mean, you are very clearly saying that what you need to monitor. Second is, what are the things which you need to do, like synthetic monitoring, distributed testing. One very important thing which I think not many people talk about is the business dashboard part.
Yes.
In fact, at ViewNet, 90% of our dashboards are business dashboards because we are trying to sort of bring in the business context into this machine data, which basically you get from those agents or agentless methods, right? Finally, the telemetry is all machine data. It doesn't give you any context of what business, what application, what criticality, what customer impact, and so on is somebody having, right? Without that business context. So I can't agree more on this, that while people do not want to look at dashboards per se, but this business dashboard has been solving a very critical problem, which has
very critical.
It has not been solved earlier.
Just to amplify the importance of the dashboard, and I'm happy that we both agree on to it, because I'm a huge advocate of dashboards. Equally respectful to the alerts as well. But the world is changing from a dashboard standpoint, which we talked. But I'll also tell you this. I mean, we have talked in the past about this concept of toil reduction in the world. One of the pillars of SRE. Without the dashboard, I'll tell you what happens. The constant ping from various different people who are not very much into technology in your corporate world. It could be product, it could be business owners, it could be the leaders, etc., etc. They're knocking on your door. It could be L1, L2, L3, SRE engineers. It amplifies a more structured type of a solution to all those people, where your work, you're actually reducing the toil by building the right appropriate dashboards as well. So there is a component of dashboard which also solves the toil part of it, which we can talk later. Yeah.
No, so I completely agree. In fact, my next question was going to be on that toil reduction only. I still remember you explaining it when I attended that session at Nike. where you talked about how some of the work which you have been doing in Nike was more for toil reduction rather
Yeah.
than anything else, right? So,
Yes.
not taking too much of time, but can you just quickly define what exactly toil reduction is? And then, if somebody's setting a SRE practice, why they should worry about it or what they should care about it?
Yes, wonderful. I mean, this could be its own episode because I think for quite a few reasons, it's the breadth of toil reduction is very vast. Second happens to be my favorite subject onto it, and as you rightly said, Nike, my attention span was too much onto toil than any other pillars of SRE. But to get on, I'll keep it as brief as possible. As we said, toil is one of the foundational pillars of SRE. I mean, this has been referred in the Google established SRE book also. As we have observability, as we have monitoring, as we have chaos engineering, toil reduction sits out there because I mean it goes to the fundamentals of thinking like a software engineer and not thinking like because an administrative L1, L2 is about restarting, updating the system, updating a config file, updating the database. That's operational nature. Engineers at the same time, let me go solve from a coding standpoint where I'll make it as a functional requirement. But guess what? Between these two entities, there sits something called chronic problem. Like how we talk about chronic issues in the health, it exists chronic issues on this technical systems as well, which unfortunately nobody wants to take care of. Engineering would be like, we have an L1, they're restarting it. L1 will be like, why should I keep restarting it all the time? So that's where SRE really comes in with that software engineering mindset. Probably this is where I claim and probably get into the red eyes of engineers also, where we try to optimize the solution better than the engineering teams. And the word is where toil comes in. Toil is, let's take an example of this. And it's nobody's fault. Toil exists in the organization for various different reasons. One, let's take an example of compliance. Now, you have something to be performed on your system. Let's say port opening. Okay, that for a compliant reason, you can't give access to the engineering teams or the business users or the product. Where it's a simple sort of an execution out there, which could be performed very easily by anybody. But guess what? That transforms into a chronic tasks, either to L2 or an L3 team, because we are not supposed to give access to them. So this is one example of toil. I mean, I can go on with that. But then the point is productivity is bad. You're hiring more and more people, especially in this world of AI and whatnot. And that's where we'll probably talk about AI ops in the later stage in the world of SRE. But not everything is where it needs an artificial intelligence. It's a common sense type of a problem which exists, which even today's date we solve by manpower. And that is where our passion was. Like when I first got a hang of Slack in the world of Nike, and when we realized that you can create apps/bots onto it, it blew our mind. Saying that, and one of I'll explain that what I talk about a bot with an example. It is, Bharat, coming from Nike, we had a responsibility of around 1,000 stores, retail stores. And every alternate month, we had to release the application, knowing that it's a legacy type of application. We had physical servers in the store, 4 walls of the stores. And we had to hit 1,000 walls of the stores every single once in 2 months. Now, you are firing up commands after commands out there. You have restart of the servers, you have validation of the servers, you have installation of the things. And when this is all happening, then you have to do validation part, which is you go log into the server, you ultimate. Now, obviously, automation part of it would have kicked in a long time back, which is write a script, you fire a script. But then that demands you to be a specific L3 person with a specific set of access and to be executed on one particular server because that is where you have access. Guess what? If that all of those things can be leveraged with the right access, with the right people, with right workflow, with a single message on a Slack, that's toil reduction in my words. So that's what we achieved. 1,000, which used to be done by one person, and he was not able to take time off during the day of release. He could actually get up in the morning, or anybody could get up in the morning before the store opens. Even if you're brushing, you're sitting on a commode. Sorry for my words, but they have to just send a message on Slack, and it gets executed. But the important other fact which I talk about toil reduction, especially the collaboration tools like Slack, Teams, and stuff like that, is you're not doing it in silo, which means when you do something on a website, it's one-on-one relationship. That's what I always say. Whereas when you do in a Slack channel, you're doing as a collaborative team, which everybody's seeing what the other person is executing. So that's the beauty of it. And when an answer comes in, we have been plugging AI also into the Slack model now. When the answer comes in from one person saying that, hey, tell me what is rate limit on AWS. I wanted to know, but now Bharat, Nandita, everybody gets to see that answer at a collaborative one. So that's the power of Slack. That's a different topic, but that's a classic example of toil reduction, which I am very passionate about. So that's the whole story about toil reduction. I'll take a pause.
Yeah, I believe this basically has helped enterprises like Nike not only saving cost but also enhance their customer experience and then revenue and so on. So it's an indirect impact, right? I mean, whichever way you look at it, reduce cost as well as maybe increase the revenue.
Absolutely. And not just that, talking about the collaborative tools, although I'm diverting from the toil reduction, but collaborative tools, which also is very much SRE in nature, is this is that nice place, Bharat, where there's always a conversation about AI replacing humans or humans being redundant when there is an AI. But a fine line and a beauty is Slack, where you can add a virtual agent as a team member in your channel along with the humans. Now, I'll tell you what happens is when you have, assume that your channel is customer support and you've integrated a lot of inputs come as in your unit. If you have Slack, you have customers who have a channel focus on to one another. And when they come and report, hey guys, metrics are not flowing, something like that. Bot can do its job because you have installed a bot out there. It can give order. But the frustration for the customer is gone that only bot is looking into it because humans are there in their channel. When they realize they want to contribute more, they step in. So this is a perfect harmony in collaborative tool where bots and humans work together to solve customer problems.
Right. No, that is very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Ravindra, coming to some sort of guidance to people, right? If you are asked to program manage a critical, scalable, reliable user application, right? What would be the top 3 things you would definitely do? And what are those things which you will definitely avoid?
Okay. Top three. Wonderful. So thinking on those lines, let's do this. I'm taking time to think on that. Here's what I'll do. I'll give the sort of a high level pointers of the 3 which you are asking. I probably will double click on that because I'm now realizing that I'm making it too long of every single question of yours. So let me answer to the point. I think first and foremost is clear objectives and metrics. What every company is different. Every CEO has given a guideline on how he thinks he wants to scale up his company. So we need to align to that rather than SRE telling no, SRE has to be just done like this. No, we need to align. So my first point on when you're talking about critical, scalable, and reliable application, and when you're talking about reliability as part of it, understand what are the objectives and what metrics would support those objectives. Because objectives are coming from top to bottom. What I can do is think of the right metrics which can support to that view that goes bottom to up so that my CEO's vision is achieved type of thing, right? So that's my first. Basically, if they have decided that I want my site to be running 24/7, there would be some companies who said my site is required 9 to 5. So you will decide what is a KPI like uptime. So that is where understanding the mindset of the company is extremely important. Now let's talk about thresholds. You might be like, if I suddenly get a demand on my company website at millions per day, then I don't want it because my manufacturing unit is not ready for it or something of that nature, right? So that helps you determine what is my threshold. And then is latency. Latency is did I like Blinkit? Have I committed to 10 minutes of delivery? Have I decided to do a 2-day delivery? So latency is in terms of that. That is why I keep saying it. Align to your company's vision when it comes to objectives and metrics. That's my first point. Second is architecture and design. Reliability, I told you, reliability is in parallel with the same starting point of your software development lifecycle. So when that team decides what the architecture would be, what tech stack, what type of cloud, what type of active, passive, and all, everything matters. That is why it is so important because we run in parallel with that. So my point being, invest time in a robust architecture and design. What I mean by that, again, 2 or 3 pointers is say load balancing, CDN, caching, circuit breakers, probably failovers, all of these type of parameters becomes very important to be decided. So that's why you design and architect that. And finally, last one I would again put it into a bucket as a point is prioritizing testing. Testing, obviously, function team would decide their testing with performance amount. I talk about we know, chaos engineering. We need to break the system intelligently so that I know if my observability is working or not. So that's the one which I talk about testing. Uh, and most important is the incident management. See, you might have the best of the tool. VUnit might have implemented the best of the metrics. But if I'm not transforming that alerts and information into a right incident management system, it's just junk of the data ultimately sitting over there. And I hope you agree. In today's world, that products like yours and many other applications have gone so better that there is information overload for either the SREs or L1s and L2. Identifying what information should transform into an incident so that I can go solve it. Because I can take the example of Kotak also. I have no shine saying that since we have your products and many other products, they have the capability to notify us information, warning, and critical type of categories, right? If I don't bake that absorption very appropriately, now I'm intaking info as incident, warning as incident, critical as incident, which then becomes a point when real critical alert comes in, right? Nobody's looking into it. that's the problem. It's information overload.
That happens in one of our customer environment very recently.
Yeah.
We had just implemented very recently there, and then we had given training and so on. And that alert keep coming, but nobody else took notice of it. And then 6 days, the whole system went down.
Yes.
Then we did an analysis, ki boss, why system did not generate an alert? Then we told them, boss, system has been generating alerts. It is just that nobody is making notice of it.
Yeah, bingo. That's where I can relate to yours, where I also stand in a similar situation. We have so many alerts firing up. What happens is we start ignoring the thing, ultimately turning into a major fire. So incident management, that's why it's so critical. Assuming that VUnit would fire an alert at a very different level, transforming that into, say, ServiceNow ticket or a PagerDuty type of a ticket or any of those nature, we should have an understanding of when would I really call a PagerDuty? When will I really create an S1 ticket? Right. But at the same time, notifications should start going in a way which makes sense for somebody to gauge, I need to act now versus later. I think that's where I talk about incident management. But that you nailed it. That's exactly the example. So those are sort of pointers to sort of think for a scalable and designing a critical a system of a reliable engine. Now, I'll quickly say about the 3 points to avoid, which is overscaling your observability as well. I don't know how you're going to see this line of mine. I'm talking as a guy who implements, but you are a guy who actually creates a product for that. So don't get me wrong. But here's the thing. I think the companies, we try to absorb everything which comes out of the real-time monitoring solutions like VUnit, Splunk, or any of those products because you all have developed such a niche layer of capabilities. And we don't know what we want to really use in a rightful way. We talked about the overload information also. So what I suggest always is avoid over-engineering of your observability at the initial stage. You need to think of an MVP type of a layer, like what real metrics really make sense to you. So that's what I have as a suggestion. And scalability is important. Don't avoid scalability till the last minute. That's probably one of the other points. And finally is don't miss on the communication and alignment with your stakeholders, specifically in the microservices world, specifically knowing that we have silo of the product teams also working with business, where the final products ultimately come as a marriage at the final stage of testing, right? So we as an SRE, we as a people who use products of VUnit or Splunk, any other products what we use, the communication of what we are developing with the engineering firms and the product and the business stakeholders is equally important. So my point is don't avoid communication. It's okay if it's over communication, but it would be not okay to go back and say that, oh, we didn't consider that requirement because we didn't know this type of thing. I'll stop there, Bharat.
Yeah, very interesting. See, this whole technology game has been evolving, right? Yeah. You look at application architecture, that has been evolving. The way we have become from something which is within data center to hybrid to completely cloud native also has been changing. And in the same way, the reliability also would have evolved, right? In today's time, how do you define reliability? As well as, can you throw some lights in when you're managing reliability with focus now on melt you talked about, right? That metric, event, log, traces. How reliability has changed with this technology landscape changing?
Good one. Let's start with this. How about I say that first change what I observe is we are moved on from the world of monitoring to observability. I want to convince you on that statement. Here's where I'll expand. In the past days, we were monitoring, which is how is my CPU doing? How is my memory doing? We were doing this in, remember our desktop days as well, like right click system metrics, and this is like the graph. I immediately go and kill the applications. So that was monitoring part of it. Now we are in observability part of it, where we consolidate things to give us one picture. So we take metrics, we take log, we take traces, not to independently verify whether my CPU, because in today's world, we don't, I'm trying to put up a stance saying that we are transforming monitoring to observability is because I don't go take action immediately if I see a CPU spike, right? I don't do that. I then go and check on the logs. Then I go check on the traces. So you see that I am observing the things right now. So that's with the technology change, we have moved away from observability. We have moved away from monitoring. We have moved into observability. That's my first thing. Now let's slice that itself into that MLT component. There again, metrics have changed, logs have changed, and the traces have changed. The first one is talking about, if I want to talk about the hotel agents. The open telemetry has made the world in a more connected way. The products, your products or everybody products, it gives a very nice way of connecting to open telemetry in a very seamless way. That was not the case in the past. It was about very specific application dropping its own metrics type of a world where I have to capture that and ultimately analyze. Now you can slice and dice in a way what type of metrics you want to see and what type of metrics you want to integrate with unit, what type of metrics I want to integrate with Splunk, etc., etc. So the things from a metric standpoint has changed in that angle. I wanted to touch on one more point with respect to, I think the last point was about exporting. There was a time when we were struggling long time back of sending the metrics in a proper channel, which is the adaptability part of it. And we as engineers had to struggle to get the metrics onto the right because you talk about the ports, you talk about getting more compliances agreements, etc. etc. But now with OTel, as an open telemetry and whatnot, it's very, very seamless in today's day. My team can establish open telemetry type of an implementation for a bunch of services in a matter of hours, not days. That's how it has really evolved. So that's one of the difference from a metric standpoint in the past to the current world, what we see. Logs, but the logs have changed from, if I was an engineering team which was writing a code called A plus B is equal to C, if that was my program, I would have written logs which make sense for me to troubleshoot if there is a problem. That is gone in the world of today. Now logs are standardized. Even if you don't standardize, the tools like yours or many other teams, they standardize the tool. There is an ETL in logs. One fine day we were doing extraction, transformation, logging, loading for business transactions. Nowadays, we are doing transformation to the log information as well. So that is how it has changed in the today's world of logging part of it. I'll move on. I know I keep taking too much of time in every single part of it.
No worries, Ravindra. Please take your time because we definitely want to give everyone a much deeper view into how they need to do certain things, right? So yeah, this is a pretty good inputs. Please go ahead.
Yes, wonderful. And finally, I learned with the tracing. So this is how we started off with our point. One was in the olden days to the new days, how the things have been changing. My journey was to tell you that you moved away from the world of monitoring to observability. But observability means we are now observing the holistic point of MLT as one view. So then each of that has seen a transformation. So first I explained you about the metrics, then is the logging. And the last part, in my opinion, is the tracing part of it. So when we compare the olden days of legacy applications or monolithic applications, it was all about everything was tightly coupled. So everything was so together. When it comes about, okay, A, B, C was the path. If something failed on A, me tracing to C was not a difficult thing at all. It was all there. Whereas in today's world, it's microservices, it's distributed between teams and probably companies. So I connect to another company ultimately to get then some executions done and whatnot, right? So tracing is just not about my team to the other team. Do I have the tracing information? Now is like, can I send it to another company which is serving me the other part of the component? Can I get back? And in my end-to-end dashboard, can I get a complete business transaction? Is a word. And that's exactly what has been possible because of distributed tracing. Products like yours enables the what I can call it as a spy. We inject a spy. He goes on, he multiplies through the traversal of the roots of the tree. And when you look back, I can actually establish the tree on a nice dashboard at any point in time. So an L1 engineer at any point in time, if he gets a call saying that your website is down, days are gone where he has to call up the UI team to say that your UI is failing. And that is the one which leads to MTTR increase, which is mean time for resolution, because every other team has to analyze and bump it up to the next layer. Now, the L1 guy, without much of a technical skills, as long as the right distributed tracing dashboard is in front of his eyes, he will see the red color out there, saying that which deep of the root is really causing the problem, and he can simply route the ticket. So if anybody challenges me like, why are you claiming for distributed tracing? How are you going to magically reduce the MTTR because of that? It's a simple example of this. L1 can identify the right team, which means automatically my MTTR drops. So that has evolved, which is not the case. Tracing was an unheard type of a topic, even anal. This is where a controversial statement. Unfortunately, even to this day, many teams, for whatever reason, tracing becomes the last priority. I just don't understand why that's the case. If I had to ever prioritize, I think as an SRE, for me, traces would come in the top. I understand, but why it is the case? Because metrics and logs is so crucial for engineers to figure out what the problem is and they want to solve it quickly. For them, it is M and L. But when I look at it in a holistic end-to-end, because that's my responsibility, for me as an SRE, tracing becomes the extreme because my intention is to reduce MTTR. So anyway, that is the thing apart, but these are the way how, Bharat, things have evolved, changed, and now we are constantly adapting to the fancier your products actually get into the market.
So I think this is very interesting times also because a lot of standardization is also happening because of open telemetry. And one of the reason we onboarded open telemetry into our product was providing some sort of a vendor agnostic method to the customer that was once you implement or install this open telemetry agent, you would not really need to think about moving or changing your application again if at all you want to use any other product, right? Any other observability platform. That was one.
That's a very strong point. I think it's important. I mean, I want to acknowledge your statement, Bharat. If you allow me for your bang on, because organizations, you name it for the cost reasons, you name it for technical reasons, etc., etc. There comes a time when probably we might hop on to different products and whatnot at any point in time. Providing these type of uncoupled type of a relationship makes your product more interesting for companies to adopt. No doubt about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The second part which we have also started seeing more recently is that people have started sort of creating a data pipeline for their observability data also. In fact, we have started recommending customers that why don't you create some sort of a data pipeline where whatever comes right to this data pipeline is available for various products, business logic, or reporting OLTP sort of databases and so on to consume
Metrics. Yeah.
and that also sort of again we moving our customers towards some sort of standardization within their boundaries so that any new application, any new infrastructure, any new data center can be onboarded very quickly because you have now sort of standardized how you are going to monitor or observe your application infrastructure, right? And that is
big goals.
which becomes very simple or easy for our customers, right?
That reminds me, I think this is exactly what you're saying. If I want to put a word to that, in our terminologies, I believe we call it as observability as a code. As long as I put it into a pipeline, I know your angle was as long as we have data pipeline, you're talking about data pipeline. I get it. Where people can subscribe to the data and information which we are collecting, but also reminds me the fact you talked about what has changed in the that now clicks me the point of observability as a code. Now we don't need to go in every single time when a new functionality comes into my organization or under our leadership. We don't need to redefine things as their application are released to the production or the next instances. Since our pipeline is baked into it, observability is carry forward automatically onto that as well. So that easy how it has got to really implement the best practices of SRE.
Right.
Although both yours and mine was two different topics, but your statement reminded me to the fact to tell about the pipeline. So as an adoption, yeah, sorry about that.
No. That is perfectly fine. I think that is what this whole podcast is about, right? Points keep coming out, and then
Seriously.
somebody. Just one very important thing which I wanted to ask you, or your opinion, what you think about it, right?
Oh,
When it comes to observability, do you agree that organization should be moving towards tool consolidation sort of thing? And if at all, yes, if you believe that tool consolidation sort of thing should happen, how can a practitioner take steps towards achieving it? When I say tool consolidation, I am usually looking at some sort of rather than somebody using 5 different tools, maybe use 2 tools, but sort of consolidate different sort of a type of telemetry which is being collected by different tools coming into the same tool, and then you get sort of highly correlated, unified sort of visibility.
Bharat, I want to say that that's exactly what's happening in the market right now, in my opinion. When I talk to my friends, my colleagues into different companies, and where I've seen Nike, where I'm seeing Kotak right now, consolidation is the truth. Although the world is moving into more of microservices, where it is silo services so that you can stitch together fast, but the bedrock layers where you create a platform or you create the core services and stuff like that is getting consolidated
Right.
to serve the customers, because the obvious reasons what we have talked so far in the past 55 minutes is with respect to how the division ultimately is causing the problem. More so as a reason, you need to have an unification ultimately of the product or the technology, at least open telemetry or those sort of things, so that the handshakes can happen efficiently. The end-to-end observability can come in, where you can see the bigger picture of your reduction of MTTD, MTTR, your SLIs and SLOs. If you are all serious, if any company is serious about those terminologies, consolidation has to happen. What you can't really do is, I don't know, this is where you can educate me on the fact, which is there's VioNet, there is Splunk, there is New Relic. Do you all have a bonding and a handshake between each other? Like, assume that there are 3 products used in a company where you can come and together give a one single end-to-end dashboard. Probably not to a good extent, right? Because you're all operating at your own layer. So that's why consolidation is not whether it's happening or not. I can code that it's happening. I can vouch for it, but I believe that is bound to happen further as well. If I answered your question, yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. Just to give you a view from unit perspective, we do integrate with some of these industry tools, right?
Oh,
When
okay.
we try to sort of create a unified visibility, but the challenge what we see in such approaches that the data which you get out of these
Exactly.
tools are very limited, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you can get only so much by integrating. So that is where the tool consolidation start happening, because then you get a lot of raw data which you can really do high correlation, contextualization, and so on, and then bring it into a single unified console, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
But if at all, I don't know whether you plan to ask me this or not, but I want to be proactive with this thing about consolidation is one part of it. Other one is a consideration of a product, right? It is about what does usually company really look at. Do I need to go buy a product quickly? Even if I'm buying which product, what really fits into me? That's a big topic of its own. Although people at a high level just think about the cost. Cost is important, no doubt about it, because there's no free money with any company doesn't want to just waste the money at it, right? So cost is part of it, but there are some important parameters which ideally any company usually thinks about it. I think simple terms would be scalability and performance. There's ViewNet, there's many other, like you have competition too. But it comes in, it's one of the things, again, I can't speak for the other leaders, but if me and you are talking about it, it, the simple conversations would be about scalability and performance. Because I don't need to explain that. It's as simple as that with everything what we're talking about.
Right.
It's we talked about the observability, which I keep making a sign like this, which is MLT has to come together. So the most important things is, are you coming together? I mean, how would you enable me to capture the journey from monitoring to an observability type of a transition? So that is important. Then few of the other things is ease of doing business, not of going and buying your product or something like that. I mean, ease of doing business with your tool in my world, which is how quickly can I go plug it in? Now, are you telling me that I have different agents for different type of the three of the MLT, or are you giving me one agent? Now, nothing is a good or a bad answer there, because some companies provide one single library versus other companies giving multiple agents. But the problem is, with one agent, we have seen there is a trouble in the scalability and the performance part of it. When there is three of it, it becomes too much of nuisance for us to ultimately constantly adopt another. So, and then the alerting part of it. Now, companies are adopting to the point where I can make a mistake, like, because you need to understand that SRE is not a big fat team where there will be hundreds of SRE. SREs are more of a consulting type of a firm. We cash in on the engineers of every vertical so that they can learn from them. We put up the best practices and they go. But no matter what I do, their way of adopting could be way different.
Right.
Now, we would have said that put this as an info, put this as a warning, and put this as a critical. They might not do it. Now, the question becomes, how is this tool empowering with the AI part of it, or be the intelligence which is there in the technology, which will have some sort of let's say deduplications? Do you empower deduplications? So it's about the niche features. So if you're now saying that's what the somewhere people talk about the cost. Cost is one part of it, but cost can always be overtaken by the premium of the services, which ultimately comes in as a package. I'll stop I'll rest my case there, but I just wanted to expand that it's not about whether companies are thinking about consolidation. Consolidation is a must. It's about whether will I build my tool own or will I go and buy the product. The tool building also is like the open source what people talk. It's about the size of the company, the technical capabilities of the company, and the energy of the company. So yeah, I'll stop there. I just wanted to go on to the.
I will just extend the last part which you mentioned, which we have started realizing is very common with respect to what we have seen in customer environment, right? Is the culture, right? So while
Yeah.
you can actually go ahead and build maybe a very good tool set, it could be fully open source or it could be a mix of open source plus commercials, right? But observability is as much as about these tools and processes as much as about the culture you need to
Yes.
develop within the team. How have you fostered a culture of like transparency, accountability, and I am started calling it culture of observability, right, in your teams?
So it's been 6 months, right? I think although it's been 8 months in the way where I am right now, but I've been hired to build up an SRE unit. It's been 6 months where I'm an actively being participant of this journey of SRE. So no doubt, it has taken a lot of effort to sort of induce the culture. What I've learned from my history, it is SRE is not production support. SRE has to be not like every team should have SRE. SRE is more of a horizontal platform to put up a strong foundation where it can be gone and implemented into some of the engineering teams, train them, and come back and go to the other team. That's my side. So doing that in the past 6 months has been challenging, but it's also very rewarding. People have started appreciating the SRE because of the fact, because we have been able to show them the transparency part of it, which is, look, this is what you have, what has been either procured from a product like VUnit or any other product, or what has been built by us. So you put it in front of the people with the right documentation, right what I call office hours. I mean, we have been doing our own marketing because people need to realize that there's an organization called SRE and stuff like that, right? So that has been my challenge not about doing the actual work. Remember, I said in the start, we are also great negotiators because we have to seed ourselves into the teams. So, doing is just not a part of it. Marketing ourselves, showing our value to the organization has been the critical journey so far into me. I'll stop there. I hope I answered your question. Let me know if I didn't. I want to answer your question precisely.
No, I think you did part of it. But what I was looking at is that uh, from your point of view as an SRE head, right?
Yeah.
What is the culture? Okay, let's call it, not call it culture of observability, maybe call it culture of SRE practices, right?
Okay.
Sort of, how do you make everybody aware in your team as well as the teams around you, uh, who basically you directly deals with or indirectly deals with, so that about the SRE uh, uh, impact as well as criticalness of this SRE practice?
Critical. Yeah. Yeah. I think you wait for the right timing is one of the answers. I'll explain that. It's very important because when you go and preach, when everything is happening good, nobody wants to listen to you. I need to pick the time of preaching what I want to preach. And I pick the time when the time is extremely bad in the recent past, which is not at the time when things are burning. I wait. But immediately next, when I go and present myself into the team which had faced that critical issue and the burn of their leadership saying that, why did we not have this? Why did I not get an alert? Why did we not have a dashboard? That's the bait for me. Yeah. So that's my style of operating. When I have to go outside because every vertical, every leaders, every people are so busy that they don't have the time to sort of listen my preaching at any point in time, right? So you need to get your timing right, just like any other sales department. So I'm telling you, marketing, sales, because I am an outsider when you look into the engineering team. I am an outsider, no doubt about it. But again, that I'm making it very dramatic. But in simple terms, my point is you need to find the right opportunity at the timing so that your preachings and your whole principle, the Bible, what you've created for yourself, you need to go deliver the Bible at the right time. Is all my point. But at the same time, huge respect of all the engineers and the leaders and the architects in the firm. I want to appreciate the fact saying that SRE is becoming a wave. I'm telling you, that's the reason why they have hired an SRE team also, right? There is no much of a resistance. There was a resistance in the past. There's like, I believe it. I quote from one of the leaders who said, "I have my monitoring established. We have our alerts." No, but everybody thinks at the silo level of I have a problem, I have an alert coming in, but not the broader spectrum of the horizon of connecting the system. So that's is the only selling what you need to do, but maturity is changing, no doubt about it. The answer to your question is the culture and the selling is at the right time. Now comes the point of within my own team, like how do we operate? How do we train them? Because not everybody is with the SRE practice of the past. They have been a DevOps engineer. They have been doing major releases and stuff like that. They have done a pretty good amount of tool establishment, be it open source or all. But then the fact becomes how do we uh, put them into the bucket of the strategy which I am probably seeing through it. That's the and for that also is the right timing, constant one-on-ones, constant team meetings, taking one or two examples of the bad things which are transposed into a good thing because of your strategies. So you you need to put effort. It's not that easy because in today's world it's not about commanding. It's about requesting, and within the request you put your expectations. I think that's the art of it. But between two, Bharat, getting the consensus from the outer world, outside of SRE, and building our own team of the SRE mindset, I believe convincing the outer world is little difficult than establishing your own SRE team because it's sort of in your control to make it happen. Type of thing. I'll stop here. I hope I sort of touched your question properly.
Yes. Ravindra, I don't know whether you have done this before or not, but if you have to look a commercial observability platform like ours, right?
Mhm.
It's a hypothetical question. If you don't want to answer, that is also okay. But I just wanted for people's reference, if let's say somebody who is leading SRE practice in some enterprise, if he's asked to look for a commercial observability platform, what would be your top 3 to 5 considerations or reference checks, right, as the prospective buyer?
Oh, I would not shy away with that question at all. I want to answer this, but it's probably for a lot of other SRE leaders who are trying to look into the product or probably who are trying to make the product better. So here's the thing, Bharat, and I say every of the next few statements with high regards and high respect. and that is this. First and foremost, which I would, because remember, I keep saying no matter what is the technical, because technically you know what you're working on it. As a customer, I would say cost effectiveness and transparency will outright beat everything else, is my opinion. And I want to expand that a little further. Transparency is, Bharat, and this is not only about SRE product, right? It's a nature of sales. There is a glorified view at the time of sales. At the time of execution, is sales are gone. People who really sold the product are gone. It's about their now production support care, and ultimately we are stuck with them. And I'm sure you understand where I'm going with this. So that's why I amplify the point about cost efficiency and transparency. So transparency, what I'm talking about is transparency of really what things are capable enough. Transparency of things how it has really worked with other customers. It's not about making up the things. Not that anybody's lying. It's about they would have implemented, say, a part of an A, but my journey and my ask was A, B, C. And during the sale time, it would be, oh, we have A. But then to realize that B and C has been missed out. And unfortunately, even because these things happen in a very time-bound type of an environment. Either we are in a very high rush or we are always very busy. So even we can go wrong with our revelations and stuff. So that's what I mean by transparency. Now, there is another meaning of transparency, which is, let's talk about the licensing part of it. When we look into open, I feel products are sort of making this licensing concept extremely complex. For the service level metrics, this is the slab, this is the count, this is the 10. If you go on to the next layer of networking, this is the extra license. This is one. I just wish it could be just in a very layman type of wording for us to understand what gets involved and what doesn't involve when I get one license of something. So that's what I mean by transparency. So I'll stop here. I don't want to make it a very dramatic number, but transparency, my hope is being very transparent out to the features which are really there to the problems what the customer is calling in front of you. And the second type of transparency and the cost effectiveness is, can it be simplified with respect to the license? Because at the end of the day, it's important for you because that is how you generate your revenue. But it's also very important for you because based on that license, I'm getting the metrics or the logs and traces what I really wish for. It should not be happening that like I buy certain licenses to realize after 3 months that I need to come and pay more because this license is not giving me that. I'm sure you understood. I'll stop it there. So that's most important. But
I understand. Now coming to the topic of today's generation, generative AI. I'm sure you would have come across multiple projects. Maybe you also would have got involved in certain projects which you would have done at Nike or trying to do it in Kotak now. Can you provide your thoughts of how Gen AI can help in any of those SRE pillars, including toil reduction, chaos, or observability? I know it is a big question.
Yeah. No. It's very simple. I think I'll take it. I'm probably not that smart to think of complicated. By now you would have realized that I'm too straight in my answers than I am supposed to be. But at the same time, even here, I don't think of fancy things when it comes to the Gen AI. In a simple term, as you use a word, if you would have not used, I would have used it, which is toil reduction. I feel the important role what it plays in the world of SRE is one of the pillars is the toil. Also happens to be my passion. Is it has a huge contribution in productivity. That's what the world has been saying, right? In today's world, we are overspending on operations. This is not to eliminate the people. This is to make it much faster and better, is the thing. So Gen AI really fits in the role out there. But now I want to take, which people have a great idea. But I want to take a moment and look into the AI component and the generative AI itself. Not just as a text message or anything like that, but the output in the observability stack of it.
Right.
I think me and you have heard it from Suresh as well, which is we were in the world of reactive in the past, where we would go and act when a customer comes and tells that your website is dark. You're transformed, you're matured very well into the proactive of nature. I set my dashboards, I set my alerts, and the world is transpiring into predictive. And that's exactly where AI comes in. Again, taking an example of Nike, I know during the period of Thanksgiving, I make around 15 to 20% more on my typical sales. Typical revenue type of thing over the span of that Black Friday type of a thing, right? I know 2 years back, 3 years back, based on the data what I hold, that we had spikes like this, we had metrics which has flown in like this, we had very negative type of sentiments which has come in. All of those information are there because AI is all about the data. Now, the predictive should be, guys, when your traffic increases from one customer to say 10 customer, when you go 10 times more onto it, you should anticipate this alert to be fired. And there will be a predictive alert with fires. And tomorrow at 10 a.m., I think you will be wrong because the system of yours has an understanding that, oh, these guys were operating at 3 nodes. Now they're bumped up to 10 nodes. And guess what? This data matches to the last year where they'd done the same thing. And their last year, they had these problems, which means you see where I'm going with this, that the observability tool has a huge opportunity to use the AI and make it into the predictive type of a nature of alerting rather than only proactive type of an alerting when the issue happens. So I think those are my two answers, and I will stop here.
Yeah. No, very, very interesting. I mean, the way we had been looking at Gen AI is also sort of on the observability, obviously, observability platform side, that how do we help some of these SRE teams or any other monitoring teams, which basically are using the platform to make it more efficient. As in,
Yes.
obviously, cannot just replace anything and everything, but how can you reduce your MTTI or MTTR where you are making them more efficient, provide them the right information. We basically are started calling it Gen AI based recommendability. So when a problem happens, can I go ahead and recommend that, okay, these are the 5 things which you need to look at now, right? And then they can quickly a checklist sort of thing that, okay, 3 things the tool is recommending. Quickly look at those 3 things and then reduce your MTTR sort of thing. I mean, that is
Very interesting. Very interesting. I didn't really think of that. No, that's very cool. Yeah, very cool.
So we started with when we started with experimenting with AI, we started with event correlation, coming up with high fidelity events. Again, it could be our event, it could be from other products, right? If they have enough information available in those events. Then we also did some sort of anomaly detection where you do not need to have static thresholds. Over time, it figures out what are the bound the metrics are coming through. And then if you find that the metric is actually breaching any of the bound, either upper or lower, you go ahead and throw an alert, right? So that becomes some sort of a dynamic threshold based alerts, right? The last one, which where we use AI for, was a sort of probable RCA. Now we are receiving a lot of data from almost every infrastructure component and application, logs, metrics, traces. Can we identify which of the components are behaving incorrectly, right? And then once you identify that probable root cause, then we provide this recommendability using Gen AI.
Very interesting. But this is cool.
Yeah. So this is
so you I want to ask you a question. I'm sorry, you're the one who's asking me, but let me ask you one question. The probable RCA. So when you use the word probability, I mean you're talking about you're doing an indicative type of suggestion, saying that this could be the cause for the issue which happened in the past, or are you doing more in the futuristic term, as in, hey, we see these anomalies and I think we expect something to go wrong. So which among the two is it? I just wanted to clarify.
Both are possible. The current one which we have given is, let's say, a issue is happening now. It's almost like a real-time basis. Your application has started seeing a lot of failures, for example, right? And then because we are monitoring the complete application delivery infrastructure, which could be your network, server, database, storage, middleware, application logs, application traces, and so on. The whole thing actually is uses our AI models to identify out of all this component, it could be hundreds of components, which component, which golden signals are causing problem right now, which could have caused this failures going high.
Fantastic. Right? Okay.
And when I say probable, because it doesn't know exactly a given problem is leading to this, right? That is why we call it probable, and it can be one, two, three, depending upon how the whole infrastructure is behaving at that
Really
point of time.
operates.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Very
And
interesting.
then let's take an example of, let's say it's a DB related problem. It could be Oracle DB has deadlocks, for example, right? Then once you click on it, it gives you the recommendability which could come from your ITSM solutions, that how you had fixed this problem earlier. And it can give you that, okay, you go to the database, figure out which users or which query is currently in that state, and then it'll say that, okay, go ahead and maybe stop that query or restart that session and so on, right?
Okay.
That is what the recommendability part of, which basically is generated using GenAI.
Very nice. Okay. Okay. I mean, I would like to read through it in detail for sure. Not
Definitely, definitely. I'll reach out to you. So we basically are doing a couple of pilots now. The first part, the probable RCA part, recommendability is still sort of beta or sort of being generated, worked upon. It's a work in progress sort of. Yeah.
okay. Fair enough.
Cool.
Wonderful. I look
Thank you
forward to
so much, Ravindra. I have just one last question. This is something we have started asking all of our guests because we want to learn from your experience, right? So, wanted to ask you, what are your favorite books? Which is that book which you keep going back to, or which is the book you generally give people as gifts, right? When you want to gift somebody, and what you will recommend to people? Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I have three different type of books based on three different type of questions. What you have, like, what is my interest? What do I keep going back to, and what do I gift? So let me answer three of them. As my interest is considered, but I'm very much into biographies and autobiographies. I'm not into fiction, and I'm not into non-fiction also. I'm 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 fascinated and blown away by people's brilliance and what humans have done to this world in a good way. I mean, there are bad things also that has happened, but still, it's the manpower and I would need it a lot of time because I think it's very easy for me to get tired and demotivated and whatnot. But these reminds ultimate. So my niche is biographies and autobiography, and with that, again, the book which I love is mostly the controversial one, which is Elon Musk. There are people that there are only two type of people with Elon. Either they love him or they hate him. But so for me, Elon Musk books, there are around 4 to 5 different authors who have done his book at various different stages of his life. The most latest what I've done is Walter Isaacson, I guess, in 2023. As a matter of fact, there is one which has been released now in 2025, which I've not read yet. So my latest has been 20. So that's my taste. What I gift usually is from another set of the readings which I do is about self improvement. For me, the great book is Habits, and the other book is Atomic Habits. Something which I usually gift it to youngsters than people who are already into the world of the world of earning money. I do that with youngsters because I feel that is the one which could be molded. Because the later part is done and set. I don't think habits could be changed so easily. So that's the one I gift. The gift part of it is I come from Nike, no doubt about it. So my most common gift to anybody is the shoe dog, because shoe dog from Phil Knight was a founder of Nike. That actually is in the top 10 of the books of the world's motivational type of reading. So that's my most common book, which I sort of gift everybody out there. So that's a long answer for your question.
No. Thank you so much, Ravindra, for being so candid, so insightful. And I'm sure a lot of people who will listen to this, they will get so much for their own if they are basically following the SRE path, or they have anything to do with SRE as well as observability or reliability and applications and so on. I'm sure they will find it very, very insightful. Thank you so much for your time, Ravindra.
But a quick moment, it's like pleasure probably is all mine, honestly, because I met you first in 2024 or 2023. I can't really remember. But as I say that at times, best first impression put in a very strong impression. You are one among them. I loved the way you and Suresh were talking, and then we had lunch together. I remember the conversation which we made during that 30 minutes of a lunch. So I have very high regards for you and the way of how you're grown up to your own firm and all those type of things. So I respect, and it's absolutely a great time for me to spend a few minutes with you. So thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you so much. Hope you found my discussion with Ravindra insightful. If you did, please consider sharing it with your colleagues. For more information about unit systems, please visit us at www.unitsystems.com. Thank you.